What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the One More Rep podcast. I'm your host. My name is Joseph Percher. This episode is brought to you by NutriBio Supplements and Crystal's Bikinis. Today, I'm joined by my friends, Josh, the Moses of Muscle, Jefferson, rolling in here a couple of weeks out, 3 weeks out.
Yep.
Less?
Sure.
Yeah, a
It's
little less.
just about three.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. He's coming in, rolling
July.
into the universe. And then we got Austin Brown with us, Coach Austin Brown. Man, this guy's nationwide. How you
Yeah,
doing, buddy?
nonstop lights.
Man, I'm tired.
I believe it.
And I'm just
I,
getting into the thick of it.
yeah. What was the name of that? What was that? Oklahoma Pro?
Yeah.
And how was that? So you had David the Machine.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, crazy deep lineup. Super awesome show to see in person. There were like
Yeah.
5, 6 countries on that stage,
Yeah. Yeah. How many guys total were in the open? 30 something?
28.
28. Jesus.
Right.
And Dave ended up top 10.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Nice.
it was
Hey,
huge.
man. Nice debut season. So what's next for him?
We're shutting it down now. So
Okay.
we'll be talking this week on getting a blueprint together for next year and probably just line up a handful, kind of like
Yeah.
we did this year. We've traditionally taken shorter off seasons with him, and he puts on anywhere from 10 to 12 pounds of real muscle every time.
Nice.
So it's like, we're 4 years into it, and that's been the trajectory. So like, I don't
Yeah.
keep, and we're close, we're flirting with the weight cap anyway. So like, we just need to put a little bit in the right spots, and he'll look, a lot better next year. So
What's the right spots for him? What have they said? What do you see?
I mean, he's rather balanced, but
That's why I ask.
yeah, the lats can always be,
A little bit from the front, maybe.
yeah, I think we can tack on a little in the lats and
Arms.
the adductors a bit. The arms, just to make, he's got really good legs, but just to fill in some gaps and just look really powerful down there.
Yeah.
Hamstrings has always been a focus of ours. They've grown a ton, but continuing to, grow those. But, like I said, he's very balanced overall.
He
But,
is.
if you can, turn something into a really good body part, then, he has the ability to do so. And I think it'll be like, pretty hard to beat.
I asked that. I was curious, like what are the right spots? Because I look at him and he is very complete, very balanced. And like you said, whenever that's the case, to me, there's never been someone that their back was too big. So,
Right.
you know what? If you turn that, with everything else that he has, and then you make the back, instead of it just being like a good symmetrical part of the physique, he turns around and it's knockout after everything else he already showed you to get back there already. That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we got contest prep questions. Some
Real quick, I
not
wanted to see David next to Dom Carter. I think that would have been a very nice thing.
I have pictures of them next to each other. I will send them to you.
Did he
Yeah.
win?
No.
He won Masters.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
On Masters 35, he ended up third in the Open.
Okay. Who won the Open?
Andy again.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that little motherfucker, huh?
He's tearing it up.
He's 5'11 and a half.
Is he? I feel like I
Yeah.
look at him and he looks like he's 5'4" to me.
I look at him and I see Colin.
Dude, that's such a great, and it's not, I don't know, I can't describe why. There's something about like the length of his rib cage or something, like the length of his torso to me makes him look like he's 5'4".
The length of his torso and the shortness of his upper arm.
Yes. Yes, that's what it is. That's what it is.
As you can
He's
tell,
got the T-Rex arms on a guy that's 5'11".
Yeah, I've analyzed Colin's physique very, very often, and
But Colin's not a tall guy like that.
no, that's why I was
That's
shocked
what I
when
mean.
I heard Andy's weight cap was 227. I was like, yo, how?
Fuck, so he's big up there, huh?
Yeah.
Andy is a big dude in person, and
Okay.
he's big both ways. He's thick and he's wide, and
He's got like a big bone structure too, which it makes it difficult to make it look aesthetic, and he does.
No, I mean, he's got some power shots. Like obviously
Yeah.
from the front and the back, you see that structural, little thing that's off with the
Yeah.
differences. But like from the side, he's dynamite. Uh,
Yeah.
when he can lean back in the lat spread to shorten like the torso,
Yes.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's pretty bang on square. And then
His conditioning, like his peak in general, I think has looked excellent every time. It's the same every time, which is a positive. I don't mean that as a negative thing. He's
oh
hard and he's full to where every fiber's on command when he wants it.
yeah, yeah, props to his coach Prob. Man, they've like nailed it every time. I don't think any look's been better than the other. It's just been like Dexter-esque, right? Just boom,
That's what
boom.
I mean. It's just he's just the same. He has a winning formula and he's just going to continue to bring it every time. Where do you guys think this, this is a pretty prolific run here. Where does this end him up at the Olympia? Is he at like a top 6 guy?
12
12.
to 16.
12 to 16. Okay. Man,
There's a
that's
lot of
tough.
yeah, I mean that's like
So
you
top.
hear that, right? And you're like, what, and but there's that many just absolute powerhouses in classic. Like,
Yeah.
but he's
Well, the
26. He's a
yeah, yeah.
kid.
The pro level of classic, and I mean, this almost I feel almost silly saying this, but I get a little sour or not so excited about classic at seeing it so often at the amateur level, where so often it's just numbers and numbers and numbers of underdeveloped, impatient bodybuilders. But those guys at the very top of the pro class, when we're talking about the Olympia, like these are the guys that classic physique was created for. Like there's a reason that there's a division that awards or rewards this look. And there's like 10 or 12 guys that exceptionally nail the criteria. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're all like seeing those guys in person, it's extremely impressive. Like that lineup was crazy, man. Like these
Cool.
guys, the conditioning standard of classic is what really
Is
makes it pop, right? Like
everybody's peeled.
you watch even like the Arnold, right? And you see the open guys, and then you see the classic guys come out after. It looks like they have an Instagram filter on them.
Yeah.
They're just
I
peeled.
always felt that way anytime I'd ever been to a pro show where there's both 212 and open. And I think it's a couple of things. One, it's most of these guys are right on the edge of what their weight cap is, whether it's 212 or classic, because it's based on their height. So most of these guys are maxed out. And then it's like, we have no choice but to make this weight. And because of that, a byproduct of that is that you're sliced. But man, these open guys, though, I have to say this because I don't want it to be like, oh, the open guys are lazy. The open guys aren't bringing conditioning. It is so fucking hard to nail it when you're that big and there's that much muscle tissue and water fluctuation going on. And you don't know, dude, some of these shows they come out and they do a 7-minute prejudging and then it's over. And sometimes they come out and they do an hour. And so as a coach, it's almost like, man, I have this guy that's, 5'10", 248 pounds, and he's sliced out of his mind. And do I bring him in like blasting full, almost spilled because I think that he's going to pose for 40 minutes? Or, do I kind of bring him in a little bit flat so that he's peeled, but then they pose for 40 minutes and he's withered away in the third call out? It's just tough.
Also trying to gauge off of who's there. Like,
Right.
if Sauce is there, you're going to want to show up. You're probably not going to beat Sauce's conditioning.
Right.
So, or Hottie, we could use Hottie because Hottie comes in peeled, right? So, like, you're not going to beat Hottie's conditioning. So, what are you going to come in blasting full? And then you got Samson. It's like, you want to play that game? I don't know if you're playing that game.
Right.
Then you get the Nick Walkers who could just do both. And
Who does both. That's right. And so consistently does both, man. Nick is so underappreciated for how consistent he is. I feel like, I mean, the last couple of years have been weird, but it's like you take the last couple of years out in terms of him being injured or missing or whatever. And it's like, man, there's not that many open guys that are consistently just bang on every time. Big, hard, full, nasty. Like he's man, so underappreciated. But all right, let's do some questions. When in prep, should intensifier stop if I've been doing them? / should I start to leave a rep in the tank?
can take that one.
Yeah.
uh, it really needs to be gauged on your how's performance training. When
Mm.
that is notably taking a shit, is time to manipulate the volume to a degree. Um, but there's other things you can do, right? But I'm just answering that answer or that question, strictly. That's kind of how I gauge it. And then so like but there's like a titration of how that's done, right? Like you'll pull intensifiers, continue to train to failure, and eventually I'm getting to
Yes.
where we're like dug out, and like every day feels like a week. I'm gonna have you go in there and leave a couple in the tank and just really focus on how you're moving the weight and just like providing a quality stimulus. So it's kind of like there's not a hard and fast like X weeks out. It's just based
Yeah.
on, if, and everyone's going to have that, perceived differently. Like David, he got stronger this whole prep. And like, but that's about the most atypical, thing ever. But 4,000 calories too. So,
Mm.
but
That
then
he's not doing tons of cardio either, which might be at the core of it all.
it
You can put
is.
it all towards training.
Yeah, and he burns crazy fuel in there because he trains like a madman. So it's just very individual, but that's kind of how I always do it. Because I do have a lot of intensifiers and training programs. And then eventually, if it's 3 sets of whatever, and then there's a double drop set, maybe that double drop set turns to a single. And then maybe in 3 sets, it's 2 sets with the drop set still. And then eventually the drop set disappears. And then the last thing would be to say, hey, we're now going to leave a couple reps in the tank. So that's kind of how I do that.
Gosh.
I'm in it right now. So like I I've never done, I can't say never, but in the recent past, I've never done my own training in a diet or a growth phase. This is the first time I just fully took it into my own hands. Um, Intensifiers were in the entire off season. As soon as the off season stopped, I no longer did what I was calling stupid things with friends, where I was just taking a stupid heavy weight for like 3 or 4 reps and then drop setting it. So I pulled drop sets almost immediately, and then I was I got stronger most of prep. As soon as I stopped getting stronger and I was either just matching load or matching load in reps or like losing a rep or two, I actually just started with rest pauses to just get that total volume to be the same, or try and take a progression that way. And then as I get closer now, if it's something that I feel like I might hurt myself or get hurt in the process, I'm not taking it. I'm not I'm not sending a 50-50 if it's safe, but if it's, let's say, a Smith squat and my hip is just feeling a little bit off on that, seventh rep and I'm supposed to get nine, I'm pulling it at seven. I
Yes.
think it's just a safety concern. It's
That's a good way to put it.
Yes.
as soon as it no longer feels safe is when I'm saying like, hey, we're done with this. Live to fight another day type of thing.
Yeah, you can't show up at your best on stage if something's torn or if you're injured. So, um, yeah, both answers are good. Because I know the nature of these questions, they are kind of looking for a hard and fast timeline or rule or something like that. I think it depends. I would urge this person to think less about the timeline itself as an arbitrary number versus like the timeline that you're on to be in shape, because that will typically correlate with the signs that you guys were talking about, right? Like if you're behind at 10 weeks out, you might still be training like it's the off season. Not
Awesome.
necessarily a good thing, but that's the way that it is. Um, if you're ahead of schedule, those feelings that you described, Austin, might come at 10 weeks out. And then it might be, I think it should be a very gradual reduction. Like you said, it's not just like closing a door at 10 weeks out. And then now all the intensity stops. Like if you if you were doing tons of intensifiers, you pull all them at once and start leaving reps in the tank on your straight sets, you're going to get smaller. Yeah. You're going to get small. Because then and what you might find is that if you do all that at 10 weeks out, at 6 weeks out, you may reach another new level where now that's too much, and you need to lower it again. So what it should be is like minimum or minimal reductions when it's required, and then it should just be like a gradual process like you talked. It's not exactly how I personally do it, Austin, but the way that you described, almost one by one layering it back until you're ready, and then it's like, hey, I need you to just train like a professional. Like I'll say that to people, like, I need you to remove emotion right now, and if your goal is to look as excellent as you can on stage 3 weeks from now, you need to train like a pro. And I don't mean like you like train like Martin Fitzwater. I mean, go in and train and fix up your tie and go in and do a job and then get out. Um, and that's all. That's I
Good.
think I think feeling safe and feeling vulnerable is a great way to gauge it, depending on what the movement is, what your injury history is, because mine is totally different than what your guys might be. My chest training has to become completely different when I reach a certain body weight or body fat level, because I've had pec injuries. So while I'm still doing intensifiers and progressive stimulus or progressive overload with my legs or back, my chest training looks completely different. And I'm just doing everything that I can to try and get a stimulus without tearing something. So,
I,
um,
I'll
I
give
would say like what?
Josh, go ahead.
I'll give an arbitrary timeline.
I
Say
think it's like 8 to 10.
if you're on time, 10 weeks out, you could start taking out like drop
Yes.
sets.
Yes.
6 weeks out, you could start taking out rest pause sets. You're still training to failure up until about
3 to 4.
2.5 to 3 weeks out. And then at 2.5 to 3 weeks out, like definitely don't take your leg press set to death. And you might be able to take your bicep tricep movements there and your delt side laterals, but like bigger movements, just understand that the risk is, let's be real, you're on Winnie at this point too. Like your joints already fucking hurt.
Think
So
about the cost is a way to put it. Like, what is the cost of bringing this leg press to failure versus me doing a seated 70-pound cable lateral to failure? Like, it's a totally different thing.
there's also the idea, like what was it? Justin Harris said you need like 25 grams of protein to be synthesized in order to gain a pound of muscle a month or something like that. Like
Yeah.
when you're in that low of a calorie deficit, unless you're reversing into the show pretty much, you're not getting that 25 grams
You're
and
not
it's
growing.
on stage anyway. So,
Yeah.
all right, it takes 1/8 to maintain as it did to build. So just get your 7/8 in. That way you covered your bases.
Yeah. Yeah, and there needs to be that like you guys talked about it but didn't directly say it, like your movement selection needs to change throughout prep as well. Like,
Yes.
if say your squat pattern is a barbell squat and then you go to a hack squat and then by the end of prep you're just leg pressing, like from a risk of injury standpoint, because that increases the more depleted you are and so on and so forth.
I love that. So many people have, especially I feel like ever since like the whole Matt Camp Jansen wave hit 10 years ago, 2014, 15, whatever. Everyone's like, do the hard stuff, dance with the one that brought you. It's like, man, have you ever been fucking way ahead of schedule at 5 weeks out? Like, I'm not training my legs the same way that I was at 280 pounds. Like, this is a different fucking thing.
When Matt tore his pec in a progressive scheme, maybe that's when all that got water poured on it.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, because it's like you need to be more thoughtful with your movement selection, and it's not, part of it is like risk aversion, injury prevention, but also it's like what is safe to make this set challenging, because that leg press, I can still make it pretty damn challenging while also still being safe, versus a fucking free barbell squat at 5 weeks out. If you're on, you have lines in your glutes and you're on pace to be sliced out of your mind, that's a different ball game, man. Like, you're talking about something, there's a lot that could go wrong at that point.
Oh yeah.
All right, that ended up being a good one. At what point in prep do you guys start laying it? Oh man. Uh, At what point?
You can't even get it out.
At what point do you start layering in the different cutting orals? When are we bringing in the cutters, guys?
Yesterday,
Okay.
the day before you started prep. Oh,
Yeah.
again, needs based. If when you if you're so, I think there's some people who like their bodies don't kick into prep until like Clen is in. Like you could drop their calories like 2,000 calories and they're not going to start showing any visual improvements until like Clen is in, T3 is in, T4 is in. Um,
Okay, so like, are you classifying those as like oral drugs?
I thought I kind of took it like oral
I'm,
steroids,
I'm talking like, yeah, I'm thinking more androgens.
I
anabolics.
thought he said, I thought he said oral cutting compounds, so that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't know. However you guys want to answer it. I mean, this is
We'll
the
do
type of
drugs. We'll do drugs.
verbiage we're dealing with here.
Yeah, if you're talking all things, I think like your ancillaries, like thyroid and Clen and things, are pretty much a day one thing. Yeah,
Early. Yeah.
the whole wait around.
Proactively.
Yeah, why the fuck wait around until you hit a plateau? Just get that ball rolling,
Yep.
But yeah, as far as like androgens and things goes, like I've talked about this before. Like I don't even use them very often.
That's right.
It's a few people here and there, but like David, no orals. Most of my athletes aren't really using much. But when I do use them, it's in that it's definitely inside 8 weeks out. More usually landing around that 6 week out, and sometimes just in that like acute 2 to 4 week out window is when I would utilize them based on what it is.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I've gotten different about this just because when I was coming up, the coaches that I had me doing it differently. So it would be, you start at 20 weeks out, you might be on Anadrol at 20 weeks out for 4 weeks. And then at 16 weeks out to 8 weeks out, you're going to be on Anavar. And then at 8 weeks out, you replace the Anavar with Winstrol. And then 4 weeks out, it's Halo. Like, it used to be just this very methodical, like pre-designed idea. I am somewhere in the middle with that because I kind of do my own drugs. Compton does, my diet and cardio and output, and he gives me there's things drug wise that I just completely hand over to him. Clen, thyroid, like when things are going to be completely removed or where my total test is, stuff like that. He writes it up. It's fine. There's a lot of stuff that I'm handling myself though, and I'm somewhere in the middle between what you mentioned and what I mentioned as this old school way. Client wise, I'm much more similar to you because um, I just think that it's mostly cosmetic what we're getting. And so it's like, why do I need you to be getting anything visually 6 weeks out if I can wait until 2 weeks out to get this with you? Um, Now, especially depending on how experienced and risk averse the person is, I will definitely throw in a little more of an aggressive protocol in terms of the number of things that I'm using. I hear people saying like they will only use one at a time or something like that. Man, if I'm waiting for 2 or 3 weeks out from a show, like I'm probably going to have 2 or 3 orals in for somebody, including myself. And it just depends. It depends on what it is, the amount. But for the most part, I've kind of, coaching wise and myself, I've kind of removed this idea of using Anavar as this like performance driver bridge in the middle of it. I've just done without it. Like you're on plenty of injectables, like you're not that depleted yet. For me, like Winstrol might be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks out. Proviron might come in around the same time. And then I've waited even till a week out to put Halo in if I'm going to put it in at all. Because then I can do 30 or 40 milligrams instead of like 2 weeks of 20 or something like that. And I don't hesitate if someone has like a track record of having a pretty stable GI situation. I will bring oral Winstrol up to 100 milligrams a day for the final week or 10 days.
I do find that like with it's very individual based, but certain people do get a very good cosmetic look from Winstrol from a skin texture perspective.
Like dryness. Yeah, it sounds bro, but it's there is just like all of a sudden a sandpapery look to the skin.
Yeah, it does like have some interaction with like metabolizing collagen. So I think that's like the reason for that.
Interesting.
Like
There
when
is there is a little bit of a diuretic effect to it, no?
I can't answer that. um,
I don't know that I'm citing anything that's concrete, but I feel like I've read that somewhere where there is almost like a prolonging or amplification of like the diuresis process. I don't know.
it
It
could
would
hold.
make sense.
Yeah, it could hold up, but Clinton's doing that too.
True, true, true.
So yeah, but that's kind of my go-to for that reason.
Winstrol? Yeah, yeah. What about you, Josh?
I'm pretty much in the same boat as you guys. I thought that I just got confused by the original question.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah, yeah,
so the original question of like cutters I would say
yeah,
early.
yeah.
I think it's a good point to bring up. It's still it's a good question to answer. But I think we're probably kind of all on the same page that that's a pretty much out the gate.
Now, what about like okay? Let's talk about cutter. Let's talk about like clenbuterol or lipolytics, right? Um, different strategies. Like because for myself, I did this. Compton didn't have anything to do with this. If you're listening, sorry, buddy, but um, I started at like 22 weeks out from my first show, and I was heavy, man. I was heavier than I'd ever been. I'm like, man, I'd like to, if I'm starting this far out, and like Josh has said, I had seen during the cruise and everything, he'd lower the food, whatever, and like nothing would really change. So I'm like, man, I want to, if I'm starting this far out, man, I want to get some early return. I want to get the ball moving. So I took 4 weeks and I did aggressive clean progression the first 4 weeks. Um, like basically an increase of 40 micrograms a week, 3 weeks in a row, and then another week at 120. Um, and then after the first 4 weeks, I pulled it out. And then there was, 4 or 5 weeks where I didn't use anything. And then put some Clen back in, put some Yohimbine in, both at lower doses. And then that's pretty much where I've just landed the whole time. But I think with stuff like that, or even, and this is like a little bit risky or not risky, but just different. But I think, especially if you have someone that's heavy or they're starting like way far out, kind of a kickstart to the prep where you have Clen and maybe even a little bit of Tren in for like 4 weeks to get the ball rolling with someone, I think is a good way to get somebody to like buy in and be excited and see that there's changes happening right away.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the psychological kind of thing you're doing there, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Because you're gonna look different. You're gonna look different quickly.
fast. Yeah, that's why I'll do that in like mini cut situations sometimes. Like I'll just
That's it.
blast.
I'm almost treating it like a mini cut because then, so like if I'm starting with someone at 20 weeks out and then I do that for 4 weeks, it's like, okay, we might have just made up the ground to where now you're ahead of schedule at 16 weeks out. And then we can just go back to a more traditional timeline.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, man. It's good.
I have
Yeah.
this running theory that I'm pretty sure I ran by Austin that um I say start prep really fucking hard. Um like start
That's always made
tightening
sense to
flat
me.
up. Uh if you're someone who's going to use like a GLP, so like if you're going to use Retta, um use Retta at like a decent dose right off the jump to give yourself no appetite. Maybe throw in some fucking fasting days because you have the body fat to use as storage for training. And just like if you got 40 pounds of fat to lose in the first 5 weeks, you could rip off 20 pounds of fat. The rest of your prep's going to be relatively easy.
You might be able to maintain that feeling like your training is off season level if you do it like that. Because then now after outside of that first 4 weeks where you pushed really hard, then you kind of just get into cruise control because you're ahead of schedule now.
Yeah.
I
So
always liked jumping out and getting ahead. I think it does a lot for the timeline. I think it does a lot for the client mentally, if knowing like, hey man, like I just spent a long off season and now all of a sudden 3 weeks in, I'm looking way better. My pumps are better. You know what I mean? I still don't feel, and people are excited when they start prep. People are excited to go do cardio or bring their step count up or really just be on top of it. So then when you can get a visual return for that excitement early on, I think it does a lot for people.
Yeah, I'm all for that. It's like I want to see like my objective when I designed like prep protocol number one is like I don't really want to change it for like 6 weeks because I'm coming out hot. Like
Yeah, yeah.
start moving, and then
Yeah,
it's like, okay, we have 1 week where we're maybe a little lateral on the scale. Round two of,
yeah.
kick in the face, so it's like it's the why wait around? It's the same ideology behind waiting around to put in the lipolytics. It's like we need to get there, so let's get going.
Yeah, that and it's like, man, I feel full of energy and I'm excited about the prep process
Hmm.
most early on. So it's like if I can, like Josh said, if I can rip 20 of these 40 pounds off before I even have a chance to like look up and think twice about what's going on, instead of just going slow and gradual the whole time, and then the final 5 weeks are a rat race when I'm already exhausted. That's a different look that you're gonna bring to that person at the end.
Well, you can just manage things so much more accurately if you give yourself that buffer, man. It's like
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of a good, comparison, but it's like if you can just get there and cruise in versus like throwing a Hail Mary, like
yeah,
if you have to be on top of it to
yeah.
there's risk involved with being ready early, but like if you're on top of it, that it turns out much better than bringing a tired body to stage.
Always. That and there you have so many more tools in your playbook as a coach if you're in that space where the person's ahead of schedule. Then it's like, okay, now like you might have 4 weeks in the middle there where you did a really good job getting ahead of schedule. And then it's like, okay, every Saturday go out to eat from 12 to 8 weeks out, like, or something, just as an example, where it's like you have these tools. Yeah, pre-scheduled high days or whatever the case is, like different things that can kind of prolong the excitement that the person has about the whole process. Um, when prepping for more than one show, what is the ideal timeline between the two shows?
Uh,
personally, I think 2 to 3 weeks.
That's good.
yeah, I like at least 2 weeks. So I think if you're doing three shows and they're each 2 weeks apart, that's pretty good.
What's too long?
If,
6?
if you're
Your first
peeled, if you're
American.
peeled, 6.
Yeah. I did 5 one time and I was peeled for the first one and it felt like an eternity.
That was COVID year for me. I started prepping November, and then I finally got on stage in September.
Mm.
Just stayed lean and prepped all year and waited and waited and waited.
Oh man.
You think that
I
helped you long term?
I mean, I was absolutely fucking inside out. I can tell you that. But um,
what, like the extended, like almost resetting the set point?
Yes.
it's like,
I can tell you without a doubt, I basically prepped for a year last year and it completely has changed the trajectory of everything for me.
yeah, I mean, if you so
I'm bigger and leaner than I've ever been now with where I'm at. And
well,
it was not a long off season. I dieted basically all year last year to the point where I was pretty much over dieted and then had like a perfect rebound. I was on top of it for my cruise. I only had maybe a 10-week off season and then it all stuck. It all stuck, and I'm probably going to be 15 pounds of muscle bigger than I was last year, in better shape.
I think that's kind of like there's two really good takeaways from it, right? Like when you prep for that long, there were intermittent periods within that where calories did come up, but you didn't let yourself get fat. And then like the end
It was
product.
short, dude. I had probably 4 days.
Okay. So, but I think my other point was just staying lean for that long, like just set your body up to like sprout, right?
Yeah.
Same
Well,
thing.
that and I had accrued a lot of. I think I had accrued a lot of because that was after a very long off season a very extended off season. And so I think that I had accrued probably quite a bit of like visceral fat
Mhm.
that just took that long to get it off. So then once you have it off and you're in this state where it's staying off for a long time. There's been a couple times where I had like the COVID diet as well. I started November of 2019, right? And I ended up on stage April of 21.
Damn.
And there was probably, if I'm being honest, there was probably 4 weeks that summer where we dialed it back to like a maintenance like modest surplus, you know what I mean? But and it was insane and it was brutal, and that's when there was the 5 weeks in between the two shows, whatever. But then coming out of that again, that I leapfrogged to a different bodybuilder because of that.
Yeah. I mean, you just grow better when you're shredded. So getting
Yeah.
shredded.
Shredded and like almost again, I've talked about this and I credit Justin Harris with this. The biggest transformations that I see with enhanced male bodybuilders are when guys are over dieted. You don't necessarily want to get there. You know, you want to look good on stage, you want to bring your best. But if you do end up overdoing it, or the time is just too long, or you end up kind of withering away, or whatever the case is, those are always guys that the following year, if they're on top of their shit all year, including immediately post show, they come back and they look like a new person.
That's true. Yeah.
And the wording on some of these questions is absolutely wild.
I like the new banner, by the way, Joe. It's good.
Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kel's got it for me as a anniversary gift. Pretty nice.
Okay.
Shout out, Kels.
Shout
What do you guys think the importance of therapy work during prep is? I'm assuming he means massage therapy work.
Recovery in general is paramount. I don't think needing to go to a massage is specific.
Getting massages will feel good and it might de-stress you for a little bit, but it's not going to do a whole lot for your recovery. Like that, there's
Wow, I love it. I thought me saying something similar was going to be like the controversial take.
no,
I don't think it does anything.
they're bullshit. They feel
I
good. They
I
feel
think
good.
it's bullshit. I think there's a social
It's
connection aspect to it where like you go and see this one person once a week and you talk about the prep and you know you end up
a
talking the whole
different
hour.
therapy.
Yeah. It almost ends up as like a dual therapy. But no, I think there's like a social release to it where you're just going and you know you feel relaxed for an hour. But unless they are physically working on a tangible thing, there's been a handful of times in my career I've had a crazy knot in my upper trap after tearing something a couple years ago where like I need someone to work that out a couple sessions in a row before I start to feel like I have mobility again. Other than that, if we're talking like you just out of habit or like you go get a weekly maintenance massage and contest prep, it doesn't do anything.
It's just going to cost you a lot of
It's
fucking.
going to cost you a fuck ton of money. It's going to cost you $150 for an hour with a tip or something.
You're spending an extra 2+ grand. That
That's a bro, that's a crazy, and I've done it. I have done that. And it's like I look back and I'm like,
just buy some GH.
bro, I could have bought so much fucking GH. Oh my God.
Uh, that'll help your recovery more.
I think I would even go as far as saying I think that again, if there is an issue or something that you're working on, I think that a well-versed chiropractor that is somewhat in this space in terms of training, bodybuilding, whatever, I think they could do a lot more good for you than a massage therapist.
I think the most beneficial thing to seeing someone like that is them to give you like take home homework if you're having a body part that hurts, like they have some PT background or something, and
Yeah.
they can teach you how to work on it because the things they give you there are gonna help if you're having a imbalance or a tightness somewhere. Like just you need to find your own stretching and things to do for that.
because it's something about your day-to-day daily habits, your posture, how you're moving during training or posing. Those are the issues that are like recurring and causing this. So like you said, it's more they have the eye after seeing you move in person and having hands on you, they can say, okay, this is what you're doing to correct it. This is what you have to do during the week.
Yeah.
Um,
So that can be helpful.
discuss the feelings, both physical and mental, of being inside out peeled.
Josh,
Dead.
you're both pretty lean. Talk about it.
Like you have you have a false sense of energy first thing in the morning, I feel like,
Cortisol, brother.
where you wake up and you're like, all right,
You
cool.
must feel cracked out.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna attack this day. I'm gonna hit
Right.
all these little things. I got my cardio I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hit a couple rounds of posing after that, and then I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna knock out this, and this. And then you finish cardio and you're like, dude, I need a nap. But first I gotta eat. And then you eat, and then hopefully your first meal has carbs in it. And then you sit there and you're like,
Slumped.
I'm now tired and I don't want to do anything. So I think it's a false sense. And realistically, like you peak twice in a day at that point. You peak before cardio, you peak before you train, and sometimes during the training session, it goes out the window.
Yep.
That's at least what I've experienced recently.
If you're skinless, you don't those bursts of energy go away. You wake up and say, fuck this. Like if you're truly like fat free, like even that goes away. So I mean other
I
things,
got some time to go.
huh?
I still got some to go then.
You do a little bit.
A little
Uh,
bit.
but that, yeah, I mean, that cortisol spike in the morning, like that's a great time to like get shit done, like structure your day and utilize that because that is a thing. Get some shit knocked out. Like I'm cardio, meal one, train. I'm useless piece of shit the rest of the day. Get my
I
steps.
was just going to say the same thing. I had the same thoughts while I was in the gym today because I had been doing my cardio, eating 2 or 3 times because I'm like, okay, I need to kind of replenish this and then I'll go train. And he kind of pulled the rug out from underneath me diet wise today. And so I got my update, I did my cardio, and I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm not even going to do this to myself. I feel okay right now. I'm eating once. I'm going to slam a fuck ton of pre workout and I'm going and training. And it was much, much better than laying around and waiting another 2 or 3 meals to go train. Um, man, in terms of like walking around peeled or really being on track to being a killer enhanced male bodybuilding shape, most of your day-to-day movements and the tasks at a certain point feel like a challenge. It might be silly to say that out loud or like if you said what it is that you're doing, but almost everything becomes challenging. Even like, you're divvying out all your weekly pills for the week and putting them in like your little morning container and you drop something, you're like,
Yeah,
motherfucker.
driving a car,
Yeah.
having a conversation.
Making facial expressions to acknowledge the person that's speaking to you. I've flat out, there's been points where I've looked at Kelsey and I said, I hear you and I love you to death, but I am too exhausted to even make a facial expression back to you right now. I'm going to sit here completely solemn.
Yeah,
And
and
it takes an awesome person to be able to get that.
yeah, it's a great point to make though, and these are all things that people don't understand and know, and it's you're kind of like stuck in a weird mental spot.
Bro,
It's
you're
just
stuck in the mud. You're stuck in quicksand, it feels like almost.
you're not on this planet. You're just surviving. And it's
Yeah.
you're focused on that the whole time, so it's tough, man. Your
You can
body.
be very irritable even, which I have found, there's comes a point where you try to make up the difference with more stimulants And then for me, that a lot of times ends up in me feeling more uh, uneasy, and it comes out then as irritability.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. It
So it's a wild thing. There's times, man, there I would be lying to you guys right now if I said there isn't times, even recently and definitely all throughout my time bodybuilding, where you're in awesome shape. But man, there are points of the day where you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? This is
if
out
you're
of control that I'm doing this. Why am I doing this?
dude, if you're not asking yourself that, you're not in shape. Like that thought should cross your mind, but
Yeah.
that's why those like visiting perspective is so important. But it's like you should feel like that for sure, because your body's just so far from its homeostatic happy place. It's begging you to make it happy again, and you're fighting that with all your being for the entire day.
You
So I
know,
fell on the floor at 4:30. It's 7:30 right now. I still haven't picked it up.
Stay in there, brother. You'll get it
yeah.
in a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned like what you like your body wants you to be happy. That's one thing I think I don't hear it spoken about a ton. I guess it's almost just like this unspoken thing that we all know about. But for me, I am just not in a good mood most of the time. Like I don't find that much makes me happy or excited when I'm in the throes of prep.
Your dopamine is extremely suppressed. That's why people shop and prep and
Yeah.
uh, go down the cookie aisle and stare, and like
Yeah.
they're seeking
They're
dopamine.
trying to feel something. Yeah.
Yeah, recreational drugs increase like
Yeah.
nicotine, these things, these vices, because people are seeking. You're just like you don't ever feel dopamine, so it's like whatever can give you that to
That's it reminds me almost you said that you kind of get a little thing for yourself is like seeking out and finding different energy drink flavors where it's like it's this little hit of excitement for you at some point. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Where it's just like, oh
sure.
man, this is a flavor I haven't tried. Like that's something exciting for the day. I've been there. I've bought shoes. I've been clothes, jerseys, pointless shit. Where afterwards I had, the prep ends and I have a closet full of fucking $4,000 worth of clothes or shoes, and I'm like, I don't want any of this. Why did I do this?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why it's important to like you need to understand like, hey, I'm not actually gonna be me for a time period, and I need to be really careful. Like I need
Yep.
to think things through a little more thoroughly and communicate that with the people, my loved ones, the ones that are going to be around me, and have a coach that can help you and guide you, because you know you're not yourself, so you're making irrational decisions a lot.
It's a crazy thing, dude.
We're absolute psychopaths. Bodybuilders are psychopaths, and if you're not, and you're not a little crazy, you're not going to get through those hard days. So you got to be a little twisted.
Yeah. That was a good one. Good question. Um,
And wooden chairs are not your friend in prep. You avoid those at like
but
out.
I like finding something like that sometimes. I'll seek
A
one out, like
meter.
we have them, to gauge it. Where I'm like, is this shit this thin yet or not? Because if not, I'm not that close.
Hey, you had glute striations today. I was really happy.
It's coming.
I was like, sweet. He's like 2 weeks out from having some cheese graters.
You know what? It's I said this to Josh. I didn't even really want to talk about. I got a little sick, last weekend, and I I said this to Josh. I've said this to clients over and over again. If you're on a good timeline and it's not a week before the show that it happens, a lot of times getting sick, again, as long as it's not catastrophic, day or two, it kind of pushes you ahead almost. I had probably 10 days where I was at a pretty similar spot visually. Um, got sick, wasn't really able to hold anything down for a day or two. And then, there's 3 or 4 days where it just doesn't all look right because your fluids aren't back in or whatever. And then the last 2 or 3 days, I've felt and looked more like myself. And I woke up this morning and I was like, okay, I'm further along now. So it's I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't go out of your way to try to get a virus, norovirus,
Neuro.
whatever. Yeah. Um, but it can help. It can definitely I mean, fuck, you have 2 days where you don't eat.
Much
You're
better prep than full blown off season.
oh man. So dude, it's like it's so much easier, you know what I mean? Especially right now. It's not like I'm starving. So it's like once I felt better and I just could go back to small meals, it was like, okay, this is cool. I'm back on plan. If that would have happened to me in the middle of the off season, dude, forget it. With the way that I was eating, man, fuck. It would have been probably another week or two longer to like get back to that level of eating. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it's a crazy thing, but it's so rewarding though. Like the times where um we're talking about where you have these dog days where you're like, man, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, this is so bizarre of me to do this. Like, why am I doing this? I can also remember just as prominently in my mind the handful of times where I really looked my best on stage. And then, whether it's immediately after the show, someone in the crowd or someone that was there that you didn't even know, but they send you a message afterwards or something. I can remember that, like I told you, I dieted like all through the COVID year, got on stage April of 21 finally, and I was fucking skinless, dude. And I was getting messages from people that I didn't know that were there for other people the following day, and they were like, hey man, I was at that show yesterday, and I have them saved. I have messages screenshotted from strangers where people are like, dude, I have never seen anything like that in person. You were sliced out of your mind. And I can remember being out on a walk, right, just like out walking around the neighborhood and reading that and like smirking to myself and being like, fucking right, man, like it was all worth it.
Euphoric, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'll never I'm that's 5 years ago, and I can remember like word for word certain messages or things that people have said to me. You know what I mean? So it's you're the right type of psycho if that gets you excited. And those thoughts, especially if you've done it before and you know that that light is at the end of the tunnel, that can get you through some of those difficult times. Um all right, last one, and then we'll kick off. Anadrol and prep. Why or why not? When?
It can have good application if you're kind of struggling or need to push or want to push like a fuller look with someone. I think specifically if you can kind of like linearly, I can't even say that, load them, basically reverse diet them into the contest and then bring in something like that to like further boost training performance. And you could kind of maybe even reverse pyramid that sequence that we talked about earlier and actually improve it, like increase intensity if you're like ready
Yeah.
early. But I will say it is very individual, and some people it can improve their look or it cannot improve their look. So you kind of have to trial and error it. Yeah, that's so. I would say that it for like a completely cosmetic benefit at the very end. Um, Sometimes potentially, but not always.
Josh, have you used it?
Anadrol, no. I've used Super.
Oh, really? Okay.
Superdrol. Dude, let me tell you a story on that one. I was
Yes.
injectable Superdrol. Took it, like put it in like 6 weeks out. I was pretty fucking peeled at this point, like ready basically. So I was doing what I was just talking about. I was bringing more food in. I brought in the Superdrol. Dude, best pump of my literal entire life. Like I looked insane that day. Like I have pictures and I was like, what the fuck, right? The next day I felt like I literally had the flu. And I was like, fuck.
Mm.
I was like hard prep day. Next day, same thing. Like my workouts were good and the pumps were crazy, but I just like I felt toxic and like shit. Like
Mm.
my lethargy went from like hard prep day to like something's wrong.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh, you were like getting sick.
I was just like sitting on the couch like dead. And then like I took it out and I was fine. Like 2 days later.
Really? Really? Wow, that was killing your liver, huh?
It was just smashing me.
Mm.
Oh,
Mm.
so that's the only time I tried it. It was last prep, and like I said, like the cosmetic, like the pumps and stuff, insane. Like I have some visuals from that time period. It was like wow, but man, I felt horrible.
It's one of the few I don't have in my on my bodybuilding drug resume, actually, Superdrol.
Kind of a random one.
Yeah. Anadrol in prep, I talked about this earlier. I think if you're trying to do like a really aggressive kickstart first 4 weeks of prep, like in my mind, especially if you have someone that like Josh, you talked about, this guy's got to lose 40 or 45 pounds and you're going to strip away a ton of food. You're going to put them on a ton of cardio. I might put Clen in. I might put a little Tren in. I might put Anadrol in because they're going to train and feel like an ox in the gym. The visuals are going to look better and the body fat is going to fly off of them for 4 weeks. Now, on the flip side, only other time that I really like it would literally be the night before.
Loading.
I've had some pretty solid success now as I've sprinkled this in the last 2 years as something that I do if all the other parameters line up. And the way that I personally do it, it only takes 25 milligrams. A lot of times it comes as 50 or people want to use 50. I think that's too much and it makes it more variable than it needs to be. If you can get 25 milligram Anadrol tablets and you have someone sliced, ready to go, maybe you're worried about the amount of food it will take to fill them out, distending their look or their midsection. The night before, you put a little Anadrol in, and at that point, start to just slightly manipulate water manually, no diuretics. And then you're very, very modest with the water intake the morning of the show. A lot of times it comes out like just right.
Do you attribute that to the nutrient partitioning?
I think it could be nutrient partitioning. I think that it's probably just very directed intracellular water where
Yeah,
there's not an abundance because you've started to slow down the intake of actual water, but that drug is going to pull the water to the muscle. So whatever is in there, instead of flushing it like a diuretic might, it's just going to pull it to the muscle.
I think it's an important to note that this is with someone who's pretty much fat
Sliced. Oh,
because
they're sliced. It's only if they're sliced.
yeah, and there's a difference between a very presentable, acceptable level of
No,
condition and
sliced.
fucking dick skinned. If you're like, all right,
Sliced.
if you're like looking good and like you're gonna do really well and like you're in shape for a show and it's not unreasonable, like that wouldn't be the route to go. But yeah, if you're inside out, because say they do hold some extracellular water as well, it's there's no fat cells there to make it skew the visuals like it would with someone who's kind of riding that line. So like
Bro, that space in between the cell that you're talking about now is there's nothing there anyway. Like there are no fat cells really.
they're going to have, and that intracellular is going to push so much and may potentially increase some vascularity. So it's going to offset
Yes.
that, right? And almost, yeah, and be a net positive. So,
I'll say this to reiterate your point. Not only it's not just like, okay, this guy's in really good shape. It's this guy is sliced, and it's best even further if they have been sliced for 3 weeks before. Like
well,
to where you've seen them under every which possible parameters. You saw their pictures at 8 o'clock when they were spilled over and they still had striated glutes. You're like,
can't
I
miss it.
could I could do whatever the fuck I want, and this guy's gonna look bananas in the morning.
I think
Um,
such a good point anyway, right? If you're in shape, like it's hard
you
to fuck
can't fuck it up.
up
You can't fuck it up.
unless you don't feed them, they come up there like a string bean, but that's about it.
The only thing that I think that you could do to really fuck someone up, if they are sliced and have been ahead of time and everything else is on the money, I think the most detrimental thing that you could do would be to not give them enough water, more so than food.
Great point. The leaner you are, that's kind of how I use my water usage for a show. Is like if you're the more shredded you are, the more you're going to drink the day out, the day of. If we're riding the line, your water reduction is going to be more drastic than that. And
Extreme. Yeah.
if we potentially aren't where I would like to be, then it's going to be worse, right? So
Yeah. No, but if you've seen this guy, like let's say Thursday night, you have this guy send you some pictures at 8 o'clock and
still
he's sliced. You're like, dude, I'm not going to touch this.
right.
And on the flip side of it, it's not even that I'm not going to touch this, but I could do anything and you're going to look awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying with that individual. Like, I'm trying to like get to that visual
Where's
point.
the limit? Yeah. I'm going to try to spill you Thursday to see.
Push and push,
Yeah.
right?
Cause you know what? I was thinking about this recently too. Cause I've had a couple of guys that are like ready for weeks ready. I am almost tempted to try a combination of something that I do with a combination of something that you do, where you said that you'll have someone basically just like crazy spilled Thursday night. And Friday, even if they barely eat, you continue to hydrate them. And then maybe Friday night, you get them back to that point where they've dried out a good bit. And then that's when you put a 25 milligram Anadrol in.
I think it would bode a pretty good outcome, man.
Yeah, I may try it with Kelsey's brother. Honestly, I think he listens to the show, so he's probably sitting there like, yeah. But he's been ripped, dude. He's been ripped for weeks, and he just competed over the weekend. Saturday he competed, and I told him like, all right, we're gonna do this kind of like he wanted to do another show close to home, kind of as a warm up, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep this very, very mild. I'm not really gonna change a whole lot for the first one, and let's just see what that looks like. And then he's going to come down and stay with us and compete down here in a couple of weeks. So I'm just going to have him like in the house all week, and it's just going to be a science experiment. So I'll keep you guys posted.
The training camp, dude. That's like
Yeah,
I love doing that with an athlete, going
yeah,
and peeking them in person. It's really fun. But
it's awesome.
if you want to be a little more modest with it, you can do that really heavy day Wednesday as well. And
Mm,
it's like, because like say the way you just explained it, Sunday is now they're going to pose hard and stuff like that. But say you did it as a mock or something and they didn't do that, like Sunday is still a pretty full good look.
yeah,
So like you could play around with it like that too. And then like, so like that's what I did with David. This show is extremely large day Wednesday, low day Thursday, used Friday to say, are we back to flat or do we need to continue to dry out? And like as a pacifier day, like swing day, right? Like continue to dry out or hold
play
that.
it by ear. Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. We'll see. I'm going to toy with it. I'm going to toy with it. He's up for it, and he's that right type of person where he's been dry peeled for a couple weeks. So
That's gonna be fun, man.
yeah, it'll be cool. All right, guys. Anything to add? Josh, you good, brother?
All good.
All right, my man. All right. For Josh, Austin, I'm Joseph. This was the One More Rep podcast. Until next time, guys, we are out.